What's up, Guru Nation? Welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru.com. What's up to Periscope? Every now and then I'll randomly live stream something on Periscope or Facebook Live. I've been experimenting with which one's better. I wish I had my iPad because I'd be doing both and I could do an actual test. A clinical trial, if you will. So I've got Luke Eddington. It's Luke underscore Eddington on Twitter. And he runs a CRO in Australia, right? I mean, no big deal, just Australia's oldest CRO, right?
Well, I wish I could say it was just me, but it's not just me running it. But
That's right, you're
yeah,
being humble. He's also a humble guy. So, Luke, thank you very much for coming on. The last video was great, the DIA wrap-up, and that was like a month ago, right?
yeah. Well, it doesn't. It feels like a year ago.
It does feel like a year ago. So today we're going to be talking about, and this is like, I use this as a way for me to learn because I'm launching a CRO. We're in the process of just early bids for phase 4 studies, so we're just starting to get our feet wet. But Luke's been doing this for your whole life, right?
Well, yeah, I was kind of grew up in it, but
Right. It's a family business.
yeah. Well, my mother started the company Data Farm, and we're Australia's oldest Australian CRO.
Right?
So yeah, a
Good.
lot of people, just to clear that one up, a lot of people think Data Farm or Data Farm, or however you want to pronounce it, is just a data management company. But actually, because of its name, Data and Farm, I mean, that's fair enough.
Full
But
service CRO.
yeah. So that's part of our challenge to,
Luke definitely knows what he's talking about. I pick his brain at every opportunity that I get. So today we're going to be talking about how research studies can be more efficient. So I've been talking to people. I mean, it's clear we're in a biotech bubble, right? There's a lot of biotechs out there. What that means, that's good for us as CROs. What that means is a lot of potential business. But it's bad for some of the biotechs because they just have a lot of funding all of a sudden. They don't necessarily know what they're doing. And so they're embarking on these ambitious clinical trials. I know from just the 2 bids I've been interacting with, phase 4 studies, that one study was looking for 300,000 patients. I mean, and they've never done a clinical trial before. Like, okay, that's
did you say
ambitious.
300? Was that 300K?
300,000 patients they were looking for in a phase
Right.
4
What
study.
what therapeutic area?
Um, so without giving away too much, it was like a sample. It was the procedures. It was just one procedure. That was the study.
Okay.
They were taking a sample of some sort.
Uh,
All right, both a different sample in each one. One was saliva, and another one was like some kind of test they were running. So not your
uh,
typical trial, but still, for your first study, that's rather ambitious. And you got the fire alarms going off there. So what's
just
going to
on a
be
video.
happening
Sorry.
with when these biotechs actually come
Yep.
out with studies because they're flush with cash now. I mean, most people you talk to, at least here in the States, I don't know about Australia, and maybe you can clarify that, but we are in a biotech bubble right now. For those of you watching in the future, it's August 2016, right? So how is it in Australia? It's got to be similar.
When you say bubble, what does that mean? Does that
So
mean it's going to burst?
irrational exuberance. So
We've got a real estate bubble in Australia.
yeah, there's a real estate bubble here too. Yeah. So
Construction bubble.
so it means irrational exuberance. It means companies are valued way more than they should be, compared to other industries. So here in the States, we're in a biotech bubble, right? There's a lot of biotechs that don't have any revenue and are valued at ridiculous valuations. And because investors want that return, right? So everyone's into the genetic stuff, all this new wave of technology has created all these biotechs. Okay, so that's good because it means more work for us as sites, as CROs, but it could be potentially bad news for these biotechs who've never done a study, right? they may encounter some challenges. They will encounter some challenges. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how we can make clinical research studies more efficient. I have a couple theories on this. This is why I launched my CRO. I'm testing it out. So, you reverse engineer the patient population that you want. You go and find those physicians who have those patients, because the number one obstacle in clinical research is getting the patients, right? All the studies we're working on at just about all of our sites are behind on enrollment. And that's saying a lot. Each site has on average a dozen trials or so. We have about 30 sites. So that's like at least 100 studies from my anecdotal evidence that I'm presenting here that are behind on enrollment. It's not good. And that's indicative of the current state of clinical trials. Would you not say so, Luke?
It's funny if it's not funny. It's not funny at all. But there are a lot of new patient recruitment companies out there. So the fact that there's still the problem and the need for that to be fed is that's sort of ironic, isn't it?
That's right. It's delaying treatments from coming out on the market faster for people who really need it, and it's because there's two reasons why. Number one, the industry's not doing a good enough job at awareness, which is why I have another startup where we're going to be using content marketing to go after specific medical indications, what I call verticals. That's one approach. The other approach is getting research naive physicians with big patient populations for whatever medical condition that study's going to be testing, and getting them interested and excited about running their own research study at their own site. So getting them profitable, teaching them, showing them that yes, you can make an extra 100 to 500,000 a year in your practice doing clinical research, and no, you're not necessarily going to get FDA audited every time you do a trial. And no, you don't have to be buried in paperwork, because there's such a thing as a study coordinator and a research staff that can handle these things for you. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there from physicians. I know through my consulting business, I mean, a lot of physicians are hesitant about getting into clinical research. And when we explain what it is that they actually have to do, they're much more open and receptive to the idea. So
Yeah.
I want to do that on a much larger scale, and I think if more people in the industry did that, meaning you have to train the physician. First, you have to identify them. Then there's a little bit of a sales element, actually a lot of a sales element, convincing them to do research. Then you've got to train them, right? And then you've got to manage them with the CRAs and all that. So it's a lot of work, but the end result is there because they already have the patients. So that's what, when I say reverse engineer a study, that's what I say. The traditional model of doing research is a CRO will get a contract from a sponsor to do a trial. The CRO already has a network of sites that they typically are comfortable using. They'll select those sites, but usually those sites don't have the patients, or there's not enough patients to fill the recruitment needs of the trial. So what are your thoughts on this, Luke, as a CRO owner?
Yeah, well, I think it's a big issue, and I find that some of the new sites that we try to help get going on studies, if there's a need to have a new site, or there's sometimes you will need to set up a new site in order to, or at least get a study running at a site that hasn't necessarily had any experience.
Right.
Sometimes they're the best sites on the study, because where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're keen and you've got the keen factor, then you get it done. You can get the studies done. I mean, it's there's some of the sites that have been around for longer. Some of them are great, some of them aren't so great. I was talking with a guy from a recruitment company recently that basically said that they dealt with X number, or it could have been 100 sites, so over whatever period of time they've been in business for, and they reckon that only a percentage of that, a small percentage, I won't say exactly what he said, but it was a very small percentage of the 100 that they'd actually feel comfortable about that would actually follow up some referrals. So, I mean, I don't really get that, but
It's
yeah,
it's just like everything else. I mean, you see this same pattern emerge in every industry. Everyone wants the results. No one wants to put in the work. CROs are not exempt. They understand that to bring on a new investigative site is risky. If something should go wrong, the sponsor is going to ask them, "Why did you select this site?" Right? They
yeah.
have to defend it. I think you need to have that investment of training. Once you've identified and you've convinced the doctor that research is right, you've got to train them. And if that means sending extra CRAs to the site or more often, I mean, we're using risk based monitoring now. You can tell which sites you can assign a different risk profile for every site.
Do you think that being coming from a site perspective that sometimes, I mean, I'm not sure if that it would apply in your sites in particular, but I know you speak with a lot of different sites. But like with the onset of the patient recruitment companies, is there kind of like a thought like my personal opinion on this, and I'll just put it out there so I don't have to say it later, is that sites need to be empowered to do their recruitment the way they would like to do it as well. It shouldn't necessarily just be a third party comes in and solves everyone's problems. I don't think that
Right.
that band-aid type fix is not necessarily going to be completely effective, and it's not necessarily a one size fits all. But
Sure.
I think sites should be able to do that. And so that's what we've been helping sites do, is to empower them to take control of the promotion of the studies that they're running. Well, that's at least in Australia anyway.
Like the patient recruitment initiatives?
Well, we've got a few initiatives for sites, but we're helping to promote clinical trial sites in Australia through AustralianClinicalTrials.com.
Okay.
And they can actually set up campaigns and all sorts of things through that website, and it doesn't cost them anything. And they can get ethics approval for advertising campaigns and things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely an innovation in recruitment. But yeah, I think like there's, I mean,
That doesn't mean you don't need a recruitment company necessarily to run things. I mean, I think we were talking about it before. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a one-stop shop that's the only thing that solves everything. It depends on the study. It depends on the people involved and everything else.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I sort of did a rant about recruitment companies in the past. All they're doing are running TV ads and Google ads and getting them to go through a call center. They do some pre-qualification. I mean, and they're overcharging. It's ridiculous what they're charging, and it's clear that that system, that model, is not working. It's quite wasteful from what I've seen, and now from what I've seen behind the scenes. I mean,
Yeah.
it made even more of an impact on me. So
Yeah.
there isn't a one-stop shop.
Some of the companies only get paid if they do actually make a conversion on a randomization.
Sure, the startups do, yeah, but there's some established ones that have gotten some sweetheart deals with the some of the big CROs.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think that's everyone's job to always bring more value to the process, and
Right.
can you ever have enough value? I mean,
You can't. So am I missing anything with? So I think number one, I think even more important than content marketing and reaching out directly to patients is actually getting physicians who have those patients interested in doing research. I think that's number one priority. And number
exactly.
two is the content marketing, right? So am I missing anything there? Or, I mean, I'm sure there's other things that would work.
Well, it's the practical side of things as well. I mean, the human element. I know that in some cases at some hospitals, nursing staff that are study coordinators are on rolling contracts, so they don't necessarily have the same job security as someone in another place. So whether or not they feel comfortable to commit to bringing a patient in and looking after them for more than a 3-month period, they might sort of have their reservations about that. And that needs to be looked at. I don't know how it works in America, but I know of some sites here that are in that position. But so that's a human element about the staffing at the site and the interest in being keen, and that's why you're talking about getting new doctors keen and things like that. and also the human element about you've got the seasons and the holiday periods, the festive seasons. I mean, we're looking at study at the moment where if we don't have things started in a certain amount of time, then Christmas and New Year's or whatever the festivals are and the holidays in the summer season in Australia could come into play. So we've really got to work fast and efficient to get things worked out, and reverse engineering from that point of view is important.
Okay. Yeah, so that's been my hypothesis. I mean, I've seen it work from the clients I've had. And I thought to myself, hey, once these sites get up and running, they actually do good. They do a good job. And that's because they have the patience for the studies. I mean, it sounds like such a simple idea. It's amazing why more CROs and sponsors don't invest more time in finding these physicians and then training them on how to run their own research clinics. And so that's where my CRO hopes to differentiate ourselves. And we've already started through consulting, but we're actually going to formally wrap it into our full CRO services.
Yeah, well, you've got to get the feasibility process right, and just because you ask 10 investigators or 10 sites for their feedback doesn't mean they're the right 10 sites.
That's
and
right.
You only have a limited amount of time, so you've got to get the maximum effect for the expenditure.
And guess what? Like, research sites lie. I mean, they're no different than anyone else. They understand that they're competing with other sites, and they feel an incentive to embellish their database numbers and all that. Everyone knows this in the industry.
Isn't that the 10x rule?
That's
Isn't
the
that sort
10x
of like
rule. They apply it to that too.
you need a reverse Cardone formula for that one.
I've heard people at other CROs say whatever. I've heard them talk about this in conferences. Whatever the site gives us, we divide it by 10. That's the reverse Cardone. That's the reverse Cardone.
But I think there's less of that happening though. I don't know. I know that's sort of
There's
the
more
rule of thumb.
transparency.
That's the thing. It's not always about you can do your best guess, and that might be the case. And then when the practical side of things actually start, and you get a complete protocol, or you get an understanding of the real timeline, or new eligibility criteria, the things can change, and you have to be flexible and adapt and work out how to get through the challenges.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Luke. Anything else you want to add to this?
Nope.
Not at all. Nothing else.
Well, I don't know. So what have we covered? Just to recap, you've talked about
inefficiencies and how to possibly make those a little better.
Yeah, no, I think that's all right. I think if there's any Australian clinical trial sites there that aren't already on AustralianClinicalTrials.com, it doesn't cost anything to have a profile. Other CROs and sponsors can find you easier, and you can post free clinical trial advertising on there. And, that might not be the only place you want to advertise, so you might want to set up other campaigns. So,
do you guys own that?
Hey? Well, it's an initiative of Data Farm, yeah.
That is good. Very good, man. That is awesome. And what is it? What's the website again?
AustralianClinicalTrials.com.
Very good domain name as well. All right, go to AustralianClinicalTrials.com. Thank you, Luke. We'll be doing another one of these every month or so, right?
Yep, sounds good.
And thank you, Guru Nation, for watching, and thank you, Periscope, for watching. It's Dan and Luke from the Clinical Trials Guru.com. Take care, guys. Thanks, Luke.